Nice day out here this morning, so I thought I'd come and sit on the wall, drink some coffee, and have a little chat with you about some very common mistakes that I see beginner photographers make. But first of all, why do you make them? Where do those mistakes come from? Well, very often it's from confusion, because you encounter a problem. You go online to look for a solution, and there is acres of amazing free stuff out there online for some incredible tutors, just like me. However, how do you know which order you need to put that information together so you don't get confused, so you don't make mistakes? How do you know how to string those different solutions, those different answers, those different bits of learning together appropriately for the shot that you want to take? We're going to play with some sausages later to show you. Now, one of the things I would suggest, and this is also a mistake, is people say to me, well, why would I buy an online course when I can get all that free stuff on YouTube? Well, I've just kind of told you. When you buy a course or a workshop or any training from me or anyone else for that matter, what you're paying for is a guide to take you through that confusion, to make sure you do know the order in which you need to put things together. So let's go have a little look at some of the most common mistakes I see beginner photographers make. Let's find out. Here's a really good place to do it. I've taken this shot loads of times. I know it well, and that's why I thought I'd bring you here. This is a tricky exposure. Why am I bringing you somewhere where it's tricky? It's because that's when these mistakes will happen. So let's have a little look at our shot. I'm going to see if I can roll a little bit of video in here so I can show you what I'm thinking. Look, doesn't that look nice? We've got a little bit of reflection going on down there in the water. We've got the house and we've got the sky. But the sky is quite bright when compared to the house. You see how that exposure is changing? That's because my camera meter is changing the exposure according to what I pointed at. So is your camera meter always right? Let's take a picture. If I just line the shot up, here we go. I am on evaluative metering. So if we just line that shot up, is measuring the entire scene, and I take this picture, wait for a gap in the traffic, and there it goes. That's what we've got. Is that right? Don't know. What do you want? You have to realize that you have to be in control of your photography. You're the one who has to decide what you want. So what if we increase the exposure a little bit? Because I think that looked just a tad dark. How about this one? Let's try again. There. I got a car in that one because I don't want to waste time. Look, first one a little bit darker, next one a little bit brighter. So was the camera meter right, or did I have to step in and tell it what it needed to do? Let's just take a little look at that, shall we? So I'm going to put my camera onto spot metering, and let's do a spot meter. Now my spot is pretty much in the middle of the frame. So if I meter our shot, it looks like this. Not bad. But what happens if the spot isn't on a darker area? What happens if the spot is somewhere else? What happens if it was on something a little brighter? Well, that's not very good, is it? The spot was on that horizon, that bright area, kind of underneath the tree. What happens if the spot is in a darker area? If I move it so it goes in kind of under the bridge where the water's quite dark there, what's going to happen if we meter down there? If I just move it again, because it's not in the right place. Here we go. We're just going to meter down there, and I'm not going to wait for the traffic because again we'll be here all day. Look at the difference, right? So these are all spot metered. Which one is right? See how these things start to join up? Bit like a string of sausages. The thing you've got to realize is spot metering isn't best. Spot metering is more precise, but unless you understand how a camera meters light, how it interprets that metering into what it's going to do to your exposure, it's just going to cause you confusion. Let's just take a little look at that, because in the vast majority of cases, which settings you apply aren't really going to make a lot of difference. Now here's our shot. Let's just get it focused and lined up. Let's take that shot at 640 at 5.6. Now let's take that shot at 250th at f8. Now let's take that shot at 160th at f11 and have a little look back through them. Because look, it's the same thing. People get terribly hung up as beginners and they make this huge mistake of trying to copy settings. The thing is, settings change all the time. Just now we had to pause filming because one of these little bits of fluffy cloud going on up there went across the sun. It changed the light. That changes the settings. Unless you are shooting within the infinity distance of the lens, then the aperture isn't really going to make any difference. And the shutter speed is only there to control movement. That's why there are so many of them. So unless you want to freeze or blur movement, it ain't really going to make a great deal of difference. Yes, they do, but they do a lot more than that as well. Look, I'm going to put my glasses down here. Let's just take a little picture of them. So if I move back a bit with the lens at about 55mm and just get them in focus and take a shot, then zoom the lens, double the focal length, move back, take the shot again, put them in roughly the same place, I think, there. And if I double it again and take the same picture again, I reckon it's about here. I'm doing this very roughly there. If we just look at those pictures, all three are different, but the glasses are very much the same size in each shot. I've done a free video about this and I go way more in depth in one of my courses, and it's a common mistake people make. They're cutting off so much of their own creativity. Now, if you're someone who's going to argue with what I've just demonstrated, yes, you're right, but it's a very technical explanation. And if you're a beginner and you're confused with something, do you really want to go into all that stuff about cropping away pixels and it's the distance, not the lens? The end effect is, make that longer, move yourself, the picture looks like this. No, they don't. What they do is they make great image files, but what you put into that image file, that's your choice. That's not a camera function. That is a photographer function. And I think this is probably one of the biggest mistakes a beginner photographer can ever make. Think about it. How often have you been somewhere and you thought you'll have a little go at controlling the camera and it's not quite going as well as you'd hoped, so you bung it onto auto and you give responsibility back to the camera. But actually what the camera did on auto still wasn't working either. That's because of the other problems, the other beginner mistakes we've just been looking at. Now, don't feel bad if you don't know these things. How can you know them? There's loads of things we don't know when we're beginning with something. Myself, everybody in the world, we've got to begin somewhere. We've got to learn somewhere. So these are some of the mistakes that you need to avoid. Great cameras, this to me is the biggest, do not take great pictures, they make great image files. What's in those files is up to you. Does your camera know what exposure it needs to take the picture, how bright or how dark? Does it know where to stand, what angle to shoot from to get a great composition? Does it know the decisive moment, when to open the shutter to capture a look, to capture a glance, to capture the sun breaking through the clouds, to light up the mountains, or to capture a lover's kiss? These are all photographer functions, and you do need to know your camera settings and your controls in order to string them together in the appropriate order so that you can get the picture. Sausage time. Now, look. So, look, imagine. What do you want the picture to look like? Where are you going to stand to take it? What exposure do you need to get it? Oh dear, they're all sort of tied up together. Which aperture, which shutter speed, which ISO? How long a lens do you want? Etc. All these questions, they all string together, and that is your photo. I'm sorry I couldn't resist that. But in all seriousness, if you're confused and all the rest of it, yeah, there's some great free training out there. I totally agree. But if you don't know which order to put together the information, it's going to add to your confusion rather than clear it up. So I hope these beginner mistakes have been of some value to you. If they have, we'd really like to know more about what's confusing you. What are the things you're confused by? What are the mistakes you found yourself making? What are the things you'd really work hard to try and fix? Pop them in the comments below, because we'd love to hear from you. And maybe, just maybe, if you come up with a good enough question, I might make a video and give you a shout out to try and answer your specific question. Can't promise though, so don't be disappointed. So, all these videos, they come with a free article, by the way, if you watch them on my website. If you subscribe to my newsletter, which is popping out, I think it's this side, but it might be that side, I don't know. Click the link, pop over there, and I'll send you an email whenever there is a new video there. Meanwhile, you can really help me make more free videos, because it's selling courses and workshops that pays for them. But if you don't want to do that, please share these videos around with as many photographers as possible. Like and subscribe, that helps me make more of them. Meanwhile, take care, have a great time. See you next time. Oh, forgot my sausage.